Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Roland Frazier, Greg Reed, and Brian Smith. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 28 years. So if you're a company that has software, a product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you can email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Mike C-Roc. Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco is a performance coach, author, dynamic public speaker, tech visionary, and thought leader. He is co-founder of the innovative tech platform Blooprinted, the powerhouse behind the What Are You Made Of podcast. And he's the best-selling author of Rocket Fuel, Convert Setbacks, Become Unstoppable. I'm very pleased to welcome here today, Mike C-Roc. Welcome, Mike.
What's up, Rich? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's see. I guess let's talk a bit about your entrepreneurial journey. I know you've done a lot of things, but how did you get started in this whole kind of crazy world of entrepreneurship?
Well, I lived when I was living with my dad when I was about 8 years old. We lived on a golf course, and I used to go on the golf course and dig golf balls out of the pond and then sell them to the golfers. So I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs have a story like that, whether it's lemonade or candy or gum or golf balls. So that's where it started for me. But I witnessed my dad and uncles and my grandfathers have their own business. You know, they were in construction, and I just watched them and realized that they controlled their schedules and how much money they made. And at a young age, I realized that that's kind of what I wanted to do. However, when I got to school, we were taught to go to college, and we were taught we needed to go to college or we weren't going to make it. And I also witnessed my dad and uncles and grandfather their bodies beat up from construction work. And I realized, you know what, I better go to college. So, yeah, so that's kind of where it started. But then from college, I dropped out with a 4.0 and I got into sales right away, restaurant business and sales. And to me, if you're in sales, you're a business yourself. Mm-hmm. Most people don't operate that way, but when you're in sales, you're a business. And that's kind of where it started for me.
Got it. So yeah, when you're in sales, like you're controlling your destiny. You could either be extremely successful or you could fall on your face. And it really is all up to you and your ability to sell. So it's like it's a business, really. It's you're an independent operator because your boss, if you have a boss, can tell you, okay, you're on the phone during these hours, but what you actually make out of that is up to you. It's just as I see it.
Yeah, I mean, the revenue generated is up to you. You know, it's not a salary hourly job, and although you may be W-2'd or 1099, depending on the setup, at the end of the day, it's what you decide and cause and create that generates what you make, right? So,
yep. I'm a big believer in that. Big believer in the power of sales. I think it's probably the most valuable skill anyone could attain. Anyone going into business, it doesn't matter what type of business you're going into. I mean, even if you want to be an artist, being your sales ability is going to be the biggest factor in whether you're successful.
100%. 100%. And, Rich, I'm in a startup right now, actually 2 startups. Mm-hmm. And, as a co-founder in a startup, you need to either you or the other person or somebody needs to be able to sell. And, a lot of startups have issues because they can't generate sales and, cash flow fast enough. And so for me, being in sales since 1998 officially, how many years is that now? Geez, a long time. I've got the unique ability to be able to do something that startups absolutely must have, and I don't have to go looking for it, which is phenomenal. Which, by the way, has led me. I generated over $100,000 in revenue for a tech company prior to even being developed all the way and launched. because of my sales abilities. So very important for those out there listening to develop your sales abilities.
Right. Or you have to find someone like you.
Yeah, but that's a liability when you have to do that, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, that it's, again, the ability to control your own destiny to get good at sales. And it's like, even if you have something that's very technical, like a tech startup, you still need to develop that skill. Otherwise you'll forever be attempting to outsource it, which just isn't as good as doing it yourself. But I'm curious. So now your book, Rocket Fuel, and the subtitles Convert Setbacks, Become Unstoppable. So tell me about setbacks, kind of like what that means to you, what you've experienced, and kind of how you've turned those around, what you've learned about turning those around.
Yeah. So I'm not telling the story to play a victim or make it a sob story, but I grew up in a broken home. I don't remember my parents ever together. And this all lines up with where this rocket fuel concept or this rocket fuel law that I developed comes from. You know, I did the every other weekend thing with my parents, child support, custody battles, step parents. You add them into the mix, and the conflict and chaos that ensues is ridiculous. And no kid really should ever have to go through that, except for the fact that it can develop you and develop certain skills and that can help you in life further. So when I was about 8 years old, my mom was moving on to her third marriage. And I just, I was like, I don't want to learn another man's rules and another man's house. And so I said, you know what, let me give my dad's house a try. So my dad had just moved on to his second marriage, and they took me out to dinner one night and talked me into moving in with them, promised me the world, puppies, waterbed, if you remember waterbeds, my own room, all these kind of things like, hey, so as a kid, I just decided, breaking my mom's heart, hey, I want to move in with my dad. So I did that. And from 8 to 11, I went through a period of time, a lot of abuse. There were some issues and conflicts with my parents, my step parents. And, a lot of it was taken out on us kids. And for a long period of time, Rich, I thought that was normal. Thought that was an ordinary thing. Like, this is what happens. I mean, I dealt with fights and arguments and cursing and, and I didn't know any different. It's a weird thing when you're in something all the time from a young age. You're just like, oh, this is the way life is. So I started going to friends' houses and visiting their families, doing sleepovers and stuff. And I started seeing loving families. And I'm like, wait a minute, you can have that? I want a piece of that. And so I realized that, you know what? And this is a really important lesson for everyone. I realized at a young age, Rich, somewhere around 10 years old, that I cause and create what happens in my future. And I realized, wait a minute, I don't want this right now. I don't want to go through this abuse I'm dealing with. I don't want to sleep with my baseball bat at night because I'm scared. I'm done with that. And I made a decision, which all of our futures, all of our businesses, all of our lives, relationships are all based on decisions we've made. I made a decision to get the hell out of there. So I went to my mom and told her what was going on, and she decided to file court papers to get me back to her house. And she told me that, you know what, when you believe in something like this is a very important lesson too. When you believe in something in life, there's going to be people that try to talk you out of it. Because she knew my dad and stepmom were going to try to talk me out of it. There are going to be people to try to talk you out of your beliefs, your decisions. And if you firmly believe in it, you got to stick to your guns, because they're either going to try to talk you out of it because of their own agendas, or because it makes them feel better. And you need to make sure that when you decide on something, you stick with it. And so that lesson's carried through my whole life. She ended up filing the court papers after weeks gone by of me walking on ice and eggshells or whatever you want to call it. The papers finally got delivered to my dad's house. And when that happened, I came home from school one day and the tension in the room was thick. I knew something was up. So I walk in and my dad had these papers in his hand. He said, it says here, well, matter of fact, he sent me to my room first, and I went to my room, waited for him. And my dad, by the way, was my hero. He, I mentioned he was in construction. He had a masonry business. He had big forearms and rough hands, and you shook his hand. You could tell how hard of a worker he was. He worked with, concrete and all that. And I always looked up to my dad, like he was my hero. Like he was a hard worker. He always had a wad of $100 bills in his pocket. Italians, man, you don't carry wallets, you carry a wad. And so he used to have a wad of money with a rubber band around it. He used to show us all the time money. And I just always looked up to him for that. Well, when he came back with those papers and confronted me with those papers, first thing went through my mind is, what did I do? like, did I do something? Like you start to get this regret feeling. Oh man, and I just remember my mom saying, stick to your guns. So he confronted me about leaving. And I said, you know what? I made my mind up. I don't want to get in discussion. I want to leave. He said, okay. So he takes that wad that he always carried around, $100 bills, and he peeled one off. He crumpled it up and he threw it at me. I said, here, you're going to need this then when you're living on the streets with your mother one day. And at that moment, a spark was lit that still isn't put out to this day, by the way, that I was like, I'll show you. I'm not going to live on the streets. I'm not going to need that money. And so whenever my life, as I went forward, whether it was school, sports, work, or what have you, things got tough, I would push through. And I have a saying, thrust is a must. When things get tough, you got to push through. You got to thrust through there. Things got great. I needed to take it to the next level. I thought about that moment as well. I'm not going to let my dad win. I'm going to show him. And here now, I'm 40 some years old. I have a house on the water, which I came from. I didn't have anything. Like I never was given anything. I earned everything that I've gotten in life. And I look at this place that I have for my kids. I've been married almost 20 years. And I think that this concept of rocket fuel, which is to convert all setbacks, discouragements, negativities, take it and store it in your tank instead of your trunk where it weighs you down, where most people keep it. You put it in your tank, you convert it into rocket fuel, and you become unstoppable. And so that's where all that came from. I explained that in the book. There's obviously more to it, but that's a little breakdown.
Got it. So basically use your setbacks as fuel for achieving everything. I mean, essentially taking it and turning it into the thing that fuels you.
Well,
I have a friend.
Think about this, Rich. One second real quick, just to clarify. If you have a target, now I have a target with these tech companies. I want to build, scale, and sell this company, impacting people, but then sell it for billions, right? I have this target in my head. Well, if I were to come across adversity, which I'm down to, when you have a big goal, the bigger the adversities you're going to have, setbacks, discouragements, capital issues, who knows what, right? If I take all those things as I come across those, and instead of letting it stop me or slow me down too much, and I just use it, like, how can I use this? What benefit is this? What can I learn from this? What motivation can I have? Like, remove all the obstacles and not make them obstacles anymore, make them advantageous. Instead of liabilities, make them assets. Mm-hmm. You become unstoppable. So that's the concept. Yep. It can become the reason that why you succeed, the reason that fuels you. I have a friend who, after coming back from Vietnam, he was just very upset about all the things that he did over there. And then, one day he realized, he's like, that thing that keeps you in bed could also be the thing that keeps you, that gets you out of bed in the morning. It depends on kind of how you use it. Right. And so it's a perspective change. Yeah. And you could use it as the thing that has you down and keeps you in bed all day, or it can be the thing that gets you out of bed and motivates you. Yeah, then it basically goes to the story you tell yourself, right? What is the story you're telling yourself? Right. Because the story that we tell ourselves and the decisions that we've made in the past shape what our future is. And once people really understand this, and if I'm talking, it doesn't go one ear and out the other. They really grasp this concept right here. It changes everything for you. Yeah, you can have pretty much anything you want in life. You can, like Rich, just between you and I and the listeners, I know for a fact that I can access anybody on this planet that I want to, that has impact or that I need to, because of the belief that I have and the story that I tell myself that it can happen. And I've proven it over and over again. I want people to understand how powerful this is. Yep. If you believe you can, or you believe you can't, you're right. Yeah. And there's all cliches with it, but people don't take it seriously. They still don't believe for some reason. And I think, though, it goes deep, right? Like, because there are benefits that we get out of whatever story we tell ourselves. So we tell ourselves that negative, unempowering story. There's some type of benefit that we get out of it, keeps us from being wrong, or keeps us, or it makes us right about the fact that we're messed up. Whatever that thing is we get out of it, then we need to discover that sometimes before we can move on and choose a more empowered story of our life. Well, and it also keeps us small and safe. And also what I've noticed too is that as I've progressed in my self-development, personal development, I started to realize the power that I actually have and that we all have, and actually experiencing it and seeing it. It scares the shit out of you sometimes. And people don't, it's not just failing and then make it a story of why you failed to live with yourself so you could be right. It's also when you have advances and you see the actual power that we've been given as human beings, you're like, holy shit, man. Like, and then I don't know if I can handle this. And then you pull back sometimes.
Right.
So it has to do with that as well.
Yeah. Actually being afraid of success,
yeah,
reasons why like that success would seem like too much that we could handle or too scary. But yeah, I guess that's the thing. Our mind can create a whole bunch of reasons why we're better off playing small. Right. And so
yeah, 100%.
Once we discover it, we can pick and we can do anything that we want. We just have to learn those things about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you real quick, there's been times recently where, I needed to reach out to, I didn't need to, but I wanted to reach out to a celebrity or some very high influential, impactful person. And I found out that I can actually access them. And once I found out that I could actually access them, that's when I had the oh shit moment. Like, oh shit, now I got to perform.
Right.
Now I got to, before when you didn't realize you could do it, it's all fun to say, oh, what if I could and this and that. But when it actually happens, you're like, oh man, do I really want to do this now?
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like being in an airplane and then being at the door.
Goods.
Yeah. You go up in the airplane. Now you're at the door because you said you want to sky jump. And now you're at the door and they're about to push you out. And now you're like, do I really want to do this? So, yeah.
Yep, exactly. Let's talk about Blooprinted. So, tell me about this platform you've created.
Yeah. So my whole life, I'm kind of stubborn. And I like the word inexorable, unyielding and unable to be stopped. But in my life, when I wanted something, Rich, I went and got it. Like I just go get it. And the problem I always had though, is I never knew what the hell I was doing. And I would cost myself stress, time, money, energy, relationships, you name it. I wasted a lot of that because I didn't know the exact granular steps. And even if I took a course or got coached, it was always high level theory, not granular enough, not step-by-step processes, what to put first, what to do first. And with that being the case, I started to think to myself, you know what? It's all great to commit first and figure the rest out later. It's better than not doing anything at all. But what if I had the steps when I wanted to achieve something? I went to this place, which is Blooprinted, this marketplace. And all I did was search how to start a podcast. I want to start a podcast. I have no idea how to do it. How do I do it? I search how to start a podcast. Boom, blueprints pop up. And then I can pick which creator I want to choose based on reviews, credibility, what have you. And I can buy that blueprint and follow the exact steps that person took right in the footsteps. If I wanted to be like Rich Goldstein and be a patent attorney, and understand well, what do I really need to do that? Like, what did Rich do to be successful? Like you mentioned thousands of companies, thousands of patents you've helped. Well, what if I wanted to do that? I don't want to try to go just wing it and figure out. I want to walk in Rich's footsteps, and maybe Rich will share the mistakes he made and things he learned along the way. So maybe I don't have to do that. And maybe I can even do it better than Rich or go further than Rich did. And that's what Blooprinted offers.
Wow. That's really interesting because you could really tap into someone's full expertise, tap into their full experience with something that's like what you want to do and avoid making the same mistakes that they did and maybe do even better than they did. So
yeah. And this whole thing came down to thinking about helping people that want to achieve something. But what we're finding also is our creators and experts that are coming into the platform, because we're loading them into the platform right now, we're finding they're having breakthroughs because they're realizing that, wait a minute, I didn't ever document things this granular before. Like if I thought about the mortgage company that I started from scratch with my partner, now up to 30 plus employees, how do we do that? It's all up here. I never really documented it. Now we're actually documenting with our creators and they're finding out like, well, wait a minute, I could replicate this. I could duplicate this. If I had to start all over again, I could do it again. And they didn't think of that before. Internally, subconsciously, they're having this thing inside that they're like, I'm not sure I could do this again. Maybe I was lucky, but we're having these confidence breakthroughs. It's amazing.
Wow. That is something. So, and how's it going so far with the platform? Like, how long have you been doing this and kind of what are some of the milestones you've hit that are exciting?
Well, the idea came about a year and a half ago, and we self-funded the seed round, and we started developing the MVP, minimal viable product. We call it the minimal lovable because we put a little attention into the user experience and the interface to make sure that when people come to it, it doesn't look like a, the old school Apple computers or screen kind of thing. We want it to look, good. And we've just now launched that part, and we're uploading creators into the platform now because we've had just under 50 creators sign up to be a creator, and we're building their blueprints with them to make sure the quality's there. And we're uploading them, and now we're selling blueprints. Like I was on Grant Cardone's 10X Grant. He's a partner in this, by the way. I was on a 10X GrowthCon stage last week, and we had 1,590 people buy one of the blueprints, which was how to get the most out of your event that you go to, which we were talking about 10X Growth Conference, but any event. How do you get the most out of an event? And I did a blueprint on that, and 1,590 people bought it from one stage.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. And what's next for this venture? Like where do you want to head with it? Like what's the what's the big target for this, where you'd like to see it go?
Well, right now we're loading creators in and getting experts, and we got to do our own part to get, maybe 500 to 1,000 people in this platform. And then it'll take off by word of mouth. Like that's what tech, when you get into tech and you get enough of users volume or user traffic, they start to spread the word. If it's a good product, they'll start to spread the word. And that's how tech companies grow. So that's what we're looking for. But we're also looking into getting in situations like a real estate team, or if you're in your law firm, if you brought a new person in, instead of you sitting with them the whole time and teaching them how to do things, what if there was a blueprint that you just created, or several blueprints down a track? Maybe it starts at a lower gradient and it goes down a track, and they just follow those steps. When they come to work the first week, Monday, go follow that blueprint. Steve, go follow that blueprint. If you have questions, let me know. And you have a blueprint established for what they're supposed to do their first week on the job, or their first 90 days on the job. That's what I see with this. And then eventually what we're going to do is I have the numbers broken down, but I need roughly 184,000 people to be paying on average $100 a month to make this over $1 billion company.
That doesn't seem too far-fetched, considering how many people could benefit from something like this.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just to get that momentum, and momentum and anything is always tough at first, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the hardest push, man. And it's like doing cardio, it's like that first 5 minutes of cardio is like hell. You feel like there's no way I'm going to be able to do 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And then you just keep going. And I always say thrust is a must, man. Keep going, thrust forward. Yep. Once you get there, you're like, oh man, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. And then you're rolling, and then you don't want to stop. So, by the way, I come on this podcast, Rich, and I'm with you talking, and I'm really looking at I could see myself, right? We're on a video. I'm talking to myself as we're doing this. Like, I know that I want to give benefit to the audience, but podcasts are good to go on and have your own podcast, by the way, because it gives you an opportunity to sit there and talk to yourself and tell yourself what you need to hear. And I've had so many cognitions from doing podcasts. It's amazing. So, I just want to share with everybody. I'm not preaching to you all. I'm talking to myself, and you just get the chance to listen.
Yeah. It's like you get to get clear on things and you get to sort it out in your mind and say it out loud and reinforce your own beliefs and your own confidence in it. I mean, it's funny. There's an expression in coaching that you're always coaching yourself, right? When you're coaching someone else, it's the things that you're working on for yourself.
Yeah. So, and it's a fun thing is to watch other people, like the Grant Cardones and Gary V's and Tony's. You watch them, and then from that perspective, what you just said, most people don't do that. Like, really watch from the perspective of that they're really talking to themselves and going through that thing right now or recently that they're talking to you about.
Yep. I love it.
Pretty cool.
And by the way, so Blooprinted is BLOO printed.
Yep. .com.
And so it's blooprinted.com, BLOOPRINTED.com. If people want to learn more about you or get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so?
Well, by the way, if there's any creators or experts out there, or if you have a team in any company or something, and you're looking for something like this, all you got to do is go to blooprinted.com. You can become a creator, or you can reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Just look up Mike C-ROC, Mike C-Roc. I'm easy to find. I made it really easy for everyone, and I answer my DMs. So
awesome. I love it, and I appreciate you being here, Mike. Mike C-Roc, Mike Ciorrocco, but we like to call him Mike C-Roc. And again, thanks for taking the time and doing this interview. And it's great to see you.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate you having me, man.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.